You sit upright in the dark because lying flat makes it worse. The floor is packed clay, damp enough to chill your bones, dry enough to split your lips. Somewhere above you, in the loft space of the cabin, mice scratch and scuttle like they own the place. Outside, insects hum in the warm Maryland night, a steady noise that makes the silence inside feel sharper. Your wrists are free. That's the first thing a stranger would notice. No iron, no chain, no collar. And they might think, for half a second, that you're safe. But you've learned the plantation doesn't need metal to keep you. The chain is ink. The chain is law. The chain is a book where your body is described the way a man describes a mule. You press your palm to your belly and feel the curve of it, swollen, heavy, not yet painful, but already claiming space inside you like a tenant who won't be evicted. This is your third pregnancy. You are 16 years old. The first time, you were 14. You didn't know what nausea meant. You thought the cornmeal was spoiled, the creek water was bad. The summer heat had finally gotten into your head. It didn't even have the word for what was happening until the midwife. An older woman with hands that shook from exhaustion leaned close and spoke softly like she was ashamed of the truth. You're carrying like a bucket, like a load, like something meant to be hauled. When the baby came, they let you hold him for a minute, not because they were kind, but because they were counting. They wanted to see if he was breathing strong, if his chest rose clean and steady, if his limbs moved like they should. A living infant here wasn't a miracle. A living infant was future money. You named him anyway, not out loud. In your mind, where nobody could snatch it. Samuel, you traced his eyebrow with your fingertip and felt the soft warmth of his skin, and for one fragile breath you believed the universe had made a mistake in your favor. Then the door opened. The overseer stepped inside as if he owned the air. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. He nodded once at the midwife, already bored, and the midwife's hands lifted your baby from your arms and wrapped him quick before you could lock your fingers around him. You remember your own sound when they took him. It didn't feel like a scream. It felt like tearing. Samuel was sold when he was 9 months old. Not because you were unfit, not because he was sick, because someone offered cash. 9 months is old enough that the baby survives the journey, young enough that he won't remember the woman who gave birth to him. 9 months is the sweet spot between survival and separation. That's not a rumor. That's a strategy. You learned that later when you started hearing the men in the big house talk. They never spoke about you as people. They spoke about you as outcomes. Good breeder, strong stock, reliable increase. Increase, they said it the way they said wheat yield, the way they said interest in a bank. As if a child's first breath was the same as profit. Your second pregnancy came less than a year after the first. You were 15 then, and you didn't get to pretend you didn't understand. You watched the midwife's eyes when she told you. Not pity, not surprise. Just tired resignation that said, again? The second baby was a girl. They didn't let you hold her. They didn't need to inspect long. She was light-skinned, and you learned fast what that meant at market. Lighter skin brought higher bids. Higher bids made men smile like harvest had come early. They took her at 3 months. You never named her. You told yourself that was wisdom, that it was protection, that if you didn't name her, you could keep your heart from ripping open. But your heart ripped anyway, because a heart doesn't obey rules. It just bleeds. Now you're 16 and pregnant again, and the cabin feels smaller with every breath. You sit with your back against the wall and listen for the footstep you know will come. Not the soft footstep, the heavy one. The one that belongs to the overseer who has learned exactly how much fear he can pour into a room without lifting a hand. When he opens the door, he doesn't greet you. He just looks at you like a tool he's checking for cracks. Like a mule, he's deciding whether to work hard tomorrow or sell before it breaks. Then he speaks a number. 16. You flinch because he's not saying your age from memory. He's reading it from paper. You hear the whisper of pages, a dry sound in the dark. He's carrying a ledger, and that ledger is the closest thing to a Bible in this place. Sound, he says. Fertile, proven, proven. Like your body has completed a test. Like suffering is a qualification. He shuts the book with a soft slap and gives the smallest nod, approval disguised as boredom, then walks back out. The door closes, and you realize something that makes your throat burn. Your name is not in that book. Your name doesn't exist in the world that matters to them. You are a list of traits, a set of numbers, and one word that determines your entire existence. Fertile. This is America. 1841, Maryland, and what's happening to you isn't hidden. It isn't rare. It isn't whispered like a secret sin. It's organized. It's recorded. It's profitable. They call it natural increase, and the phrase is so clean it makes your skin crawl. Natural increase. As if this is weather. As if it's apples growing on a tree. As if the locked doors, the orders, the threats, the forced closeness, the calculations, none of that exists. They want you to believe it's nature, but it's math. And the math begins long before you were born. In 1808, the United States banned the importation of enslaved people from Africa. Politicians congratulated themselves. Newspapers called it moral progress. Some abolitionists even hoped it would be a crack in the foundation. But the plantations didn't empty. The cotton didn't stop. The money didn't vanish. Demand didn't soften. It sharpened. Cotton had become an engine, and engines don't care what they burn as long as they keep running. No more ships meant no more fresh supply. So the supply had to be made. And the upper South Maryland, Virginia, Kentucky had the networks. The markets, the traders, the infrastructure to make and move human beings like inventory. They turned their land into something else. Not just fields, factories. Factories that produce children. A child born on a plantation became currency. Not in speeches, not in sermons, but in practice. Newborns were described like future collateral. Babies became numbers that could be used to secure loans, to pay debts, to settle inheritances. And your belly, your blood, your bones became the machinery that printed that currency. That's why they monitor you. That's why they feed you just enough. That's why, when you're pregnant, the cruelty becomes technical. You've seen it. Whipping is common, but whipping a pregnant woman risks damaging the profit. So they invent methods that protect the pregnancy while punishing the woman. You've seen a girl forced to kneel over a shallow pit so her belly hangs free while the lash tears her back. You've heard her teeth grind into dirt to keep from screaming because screaming makes it worse. A system so committed to violence, it engineers ways to beat you safely. Safely for the baby, not for you. And if you think you can refuse, you find the second layer of the machine. How they enforce breeding without always calling it breeding. Sometimes they assign you a husband, a man chosen like livestock for size and strength. Sometimes the man is as trapped as you, terrified and ashamed, and the two of you stare at each other like strangers handed a weapon. Sometimes he resists. Then the overseer uses violence to make sure resistance doesn't survive. They want one thing: results, a pregnancy, an increase. You press your hand to your belly again and feel a faint flutter. Not a kick yet, just movement that reminds you there is life inside you, and it should feel like hope. It should feel like something holy. But here, it feels like a countdown. Because you already know how this ends. Not with a cradle. Not with a family. With a wagon. With a traitor. With a ledger closing like a judge's gavel. Somewhere outside, a dog barks. A man laughs. Far away. Careless. The sound doesn't belong to your world. It belongs to the world that owns you. You stare into the dark and you make yourself a promise, small enough to fit in your chest. If they take this one too, you will not let the memory die the way they wanted to. You will remember, even if remembering is the only freedom you ever get. Morning doesn't arrive here like a sunrise. It arrives like a command. A bell rings somewhere near the main house, and bodies start moving before the sound has fully faded. The cabin wakes up in pieces, a cough, a groan, the scrape of feet on clay. You sit up too fast and the world tilts for a second, your stomach turning like it's trying to remind you who's in charge. Outside, the air is wet with dawn. The sky is pale, washed out like it hasn't decided whether it wants to be blue or gray. You step onto the yard with the other women and feel the mud suck at your heels. No shoes for you. Shoes are for feet that belong to people. You keep your eyes down. That's another rule you learned without being taught. Eyes up can be read as challenge. Eyes down is survival. But even with your eyes down, you can still see enough. The row of cabins, the smoke from the kitchen, the white fence that separates the world where they eat from the world where you bleed. A man is standing by the well with a clipboard, not a whip, not a gun. A clipboard. Because this place doesn't run on rage. It runs on records. He calls names sometimes, but not your name. He calls the names they gave people when they bought them. Names meant to fit easily in a mouth that doesn't respect you. He calls out ages. He calls out conditions. When he gets to you, he doesn't say anything human. He says, Number 27. You know you're number 27 because the midwife whispered it to you the day you arrived. She didn't want you to hear it from a white man first. Like that would somehow soften the humiliation. Number 27, he repeats. Breeding cabin. The words slide out of him like he's assigning chores, like he's saying, milk the cows or feed the pigs. You feel heat rise into your face. Anger, shame, something sharp enough to be dangerous. You swallow it back down. You swallow everything down here. Swallowing is how you stay alive. The breeding cabin is not a special building. It's not labeled. It doesn't have a sign. That would be too honest. It's just a cabin set slightly apart with a lock that's newer than the other locks. A cabin close enough to the main house that someone can keep an eye on it without walking far. Inside, the air is stale. There's a bed frame, a straw mattress, a single chair. No comfort, just function. The chair is for the midwife, sometimes. The bed is for the work. Work. That's the word they use when they're trying to act like this is normal. A woman named Eliza is already inside. She's older than you, maybe 25, but she looks older than that. Her hair is pulled back tight. Her eyes are steady in a way that feels like a warning. She's holding her arms around herself as if she's trying to keep her ribs from breaking. She looks at you and gives the slightest shake of her head. Not no, not yes. Just don't talk. Time becomes thick. You sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the knots in the wooden floor. You can hear your own breathing, too loud, like the cabin is listening. Eliza stands by the wall, still as a post. Minutes pass, then boots a key. The lock turning. A man steps in. He's enslaved, too. You can tell by his clothes, by the way he doesn't meet your eyes, by the way his shoulders are tense, like he expects a blow even when no one is swinging. He's big, tall, strong, the kind of strength they like, the kind they feed. He looks like someone who's been given extra meat, extra cornmeal, extra rest, not as kindness, but as maintenance. The stockman, you've heard the word before, whispered like a curse. A man selected and forced into the same kind of violation you're being forced into. A man who is both victim and tool, hated by the women and hated by the men and hated by himself. Because the plantation has designed it so hatred has nowhere safe to go except sideways. He stands in the doorway like he wants to run. The overseer is behind him, one hand on the man's shoulder like he's guiding livestock into a pen. Do your duty, the overseer says. Duty, as if this is patriotism, as if this is marriage, as if there's anything holy here. The overseer's eyes flick to you and Eliza, cold and satisfied. If they fight, he says to the stockman, you know what to do. Then he closes the door and the lock clicks again. Silence. The stockman swallows. His throat moves hard. He looks at you, then looks away like the sight of you burns. I'm sorry, he whispers. The words hit you like a slap because you've gone months without hearing anyone apologize. Apologies don't exist in the world where you are property. An apology is an admission that you are a person. Eliza laughs once, a sound with no humor in it. Sorry don't do nothing, she says. The stockman flinches like she struck him. He takes a step forward, then stops. You can feel the shape of the trap closing around all three of you. If he refuses, they'll whip him until his back opens like meat. If you refuse, they'll whip you until you stop. If you bite, scratch, scream, they'll punish you later in ways you can't predict. The plantation doesn't care who hates who. The plantation wants one thing: a pregnancy. Eliza moves first. Not toward him, toward the bed. She sits down with her hands flat on her thighs, like she's bracing for impact. Her eyes go distant, like she's leaving her body on purpose. That's how some women survive. They step away inside themselves. The stockman's hands tremble. He looks at Eliza, then at you, then at the floor. I ain't wantin', he starts. But the sentence dies because there's no ending that changes the outcome. You stare at the wall and think of your first baby. Samuel, his small face pressed to your chest. The warmth of him, off. The sound you made when they pulled him away. You think of the second, the girl you never named. The way her tiny fingers curled and uncurled like she was grabbing the world. You think of her being carried off before you could memorize her smell. You think of your belly now, swollen again, and the way this place turns love into a weapon. The stockman steps closer. Eliza closes her eyes. You don't close yours. You can't. Closing feels like surrender, and you've already surrendered too much. When it's done, the cabin smells like sweat and straw and something sour. The stockman doesn't look at either of you. He pulls his shirt down like it can cover shame. He stands by the door, waiting. Hours pass in fragments. The overseer unlocks the door near noon, as casual as if he's letting chickens out of a coop. He looks at the stockman's face, checks for bruises like he's checking for damage on equipment, then nods. Good, he says. That word again. Good. The stockman walks out without speaking. He doesn't run. He can't. Running would make him look guilty, and guilt is dangerous in a world where power is looking for reasons. Eliza stands slowly. Her knees shake. She leans a hand against the wall. They don't even care if you hate it, she says, voice low. Sometimes they like it more. You swallow hard. What do we do? You ask, because the question breaks out of you like blood. Eliza looks at you, and for the first time you see something in her eyes that isn't just exhaustion. It's knowledge. Some women stop it, she whispers. Your heart thuds. How? Achilles' glances at the door, like the walls might repeat her. Then she leans close enough that you can smell the smoke in her hair. Cottonroot, she says. Bark. Bitter. It'll make you cramp like death. But it can. It can empty you. You go cold. Empty you. She continues, faster now, like she has to get the words out before courage fades. Tansy tea, certain weeds. Depends on the woman. Depends how far along, and if they find out. You whisper. Eliza's mouth twists. If they find out, they'll beat you worse than if you ran. 'Cause you ain't just disobeying. You stealing money from them. That's the truth laid bare. Your womb is not yours. It is their investment. And anything you do to reclaim it is theft in their eyes. Eliza takes your hand, quick and hard, squeezing like she's trying to pass strength into you through skin. But listen, she says. Sometimes sometimes you gotta steal. She lets go and steps away, and the moment is over. The day resets itself like it always does. Work, orders, silence. But as you walk back to the quarters, your mind is no longer empty. There's a new thing inside you now, besides the baby. It's a choice, not a clean choice, not a safe one, but a choice that belongs to you in the smallest way, and that's dangerous. Because the plantation was built to make sure you never even imagine you have one.
That night, you don't sleep. You curl on the clay floor and listen to the cabin breathe. Every creak sounds like footsteps. Every gust through the boards sounds like a warning. Your hand rests on your belly. It feels heavier, not because the child grew overnight, but because the idea of it did. A choice. Eliza's words circle your head like a trapped moth. Cotton, root bark, bitter. It'll cramp you like death, but it can empty you. The phrase empty you hits your chest, horrible, yet strangely like a door. You close your eyes and see Samuel. Not clearly, memory starves here too, but enough. Enough to hurt, enough to remind you. Someone once belonged to you. The first time they took your baby, you screamed. Then you lived. You went back to the fields. You swallowed grief like dust, because swallowing was survival. The second time, you didn't scream as much. You went quiet. You told yourself quiet was strength. But quiet wasn't strength. Quiet was numbness. Now, pregnant again, the numbness is cracking. Under it is something sharp, desperate enough to do something reckless. You finally understand why some women risk death. Morning doesn't arrive like a sunrise. It arrives like an order. The bell rings. Bodies move before the sound fades. You step outside with your eyes down, the safest posture. You find Eliza behind the wash line, where wet cloth hangs like a wall. It hides your mouths from listening eyes. Eliza scrubs a shirt, hands raw and sure. She doesn't look up. Don't say it aloud, she murmurs. Her voice is small, but practiced like she's learned words can kill. I won't, you whisper. You scan the yard. A white man crosses by the kitchen. Another stands by the barn. Someone is always standing here. Someone is always watching. How do you get it? You ask. The question breaks out of you like blood. You hate needing it, but you need it. Eliza scrubs harder. There's cotton at the tree line. Roots run deep. You dig at night, quiet, fast, no lantern, no footprints left. But they patrol, you say. You remember boots in the dark? You remember how a twig snapping can turn into a beating. Eliza glances up quick. Then you don't go alone. You go when the dogs are fed. You go when the men are drunk. Her eyes flick towards your belly. And you don't wait too long. After a point, it won't work. Or it'll kill you. Your throat tightens. And if they find it, you whisper, you already know the answer, but you need to hear it anyway. Eliza's mouth twists. They'll whip you like you stole cash. Because you did. You stole profit, and they hate thieves. A laugh comes from the yard, white laughter, careless. It floats over the cabins like smoke. You feel your skin crawl at how normal it sounds. Elisa leans closer, voice thinner than thread. Some women drink it anyway. Some die, some live. But either way, it's theirs for one moment. You stare at her 1 moment. That's what freedom is here. A moment you claim with shaking hands, knowing it might cost everything. That night, you don't eat much. You save strength the way you save crumbs. You watch the door. You listen for steps. You wait for the camp to loosen. Later, when the liquor starts talking in the overseer's voice, the yard changes. Men laugh louder. Boots stumble. The dogs bark, then quiet down. Eliza appears at your door like a shadow. She doesn't say your name. Names are dangerous. She just nods once, and you follow. You move low, slow, careful. The moon is thin, just enough to outline fences and trees. Your heart beats so hard you're sure it can be heard. At the tree line, the air turns cooler. Leaves whisper overhead. The cotton plants are ghosts in the dark, pale tufts like small wounds. Elisa hands you a broken tool, a scrap of metal with an edge. Not much, but enough. You kneel and start to dig. The soil is stubborn. Roots fight back. Your fingers ache. Your breath comes fast. Every sound feels too loud, like the earth itself might betray you. You hit something thick. Eliza touches your wrist stop. She points. You scrape carefully until you see it. Pale root, knotted and alive. For a second you hesitate. This isn't just a plant. It's a line you can't uncross. Once you take it, you can't pretend you didn't. Then you remember Samuel's reaching hands. You remember empty arms, and your hesitation turns into rage so quiet it feels holy. You cut the root and wrap it in cloth. Eliza tucks it under your shirt like it's contraband, because it is. You both freeze at a distant shout. Silence returns. You exhale like you've been underwater. You slip back to the cabins, step by step, leaving as little trace as possible. Inside, you sit on the floor and stare at the bundle. It looks harmless, a piece of root, a bitter stick, but your life can change because of it. You hear Elisa's last warning in your head, don't wait too long, and you realize the plantation has done its cruelest trick. It's forced you to race against your own body. You stare at the wrapped root until your eyes sting, like looking at fire too long. Eliza sits beside the door, listening. Her silence says, decide fast, decide quiet. You boil water in a tin cup, barely simmering so the smell won't travel. You shave thin slivers of bark, hands shaking, and drop them in like coins. The tea turns the color of old rust. Bitter rises into your nose before it hits your tongue. You drink anyway, not bravely, not cleanly. You drink like someone swallowing a knife to cut a chain. Then the cramps start, low and tight, like a fist closing inside you. You bite cloth. You press your forehead to the wall. You do not scream. Screams bring boots. Screams bring questions. Questions bring punishment. By midnight, pain becomes a wave that never breaks, just keeps rising. You feel blood. Warm, sudden, undeniable. Your stomach drops with it. You whisper, I'm sorry, to something that never asked to be made. Eliza grips your wrist. Don't drown in it, she says. Stay here. Stay breathing. You nod, though tears blur everything. Guilt is a luxury, and the plantation sells luxuries. You sit in the dark, emptied, hollowed, alive. Outside, the bell rings. Life resets like nothing happened. You wash your hands in cold water until your fingers go numb, scrubbing away proof. The overseer scans faces. His eyes stop on you, then slide away, unimpressed. He doesn't know, not yet. You feel a small, fierce victory flare in your ribs. For 2 days, you work careful with every step, careful with every breath. On the 3rd day, the midwife is called. You see her walk toward your cabin. Your throat tightens. Eliza's gaze meets yours. Steady, warning, ready. The midwife enters, looks at your sheets, and her face hardens into the mask of survival. She whispers, you lost it. Like it's weather, like it's chance, like it isn't theft. You nod once. The midwife exhales through her nose, then shakes her head. Too much loss, she mutters, loud enough for the wall to hear. She exits and tells the overseer you're weak for now. The words are a shield and a gamble. That afternoon, you are pulled from the field and made to stand before the owner. I invested, he says, and you wasted. Your mouth tastes like metal. You keep your eyes down and your face blank. He circles you slowly. We'll fix this, he says, as if you're broken equipment. For a week, you are watched, meals measured, steps counted, doors checked twice. Then they change tactics. They stop trying to breed you. They decide to sell you. You hear it from the cook's boy. Traders coming. They say you're trouble. Trouble. The word lands like ice. Trouble gets shipped south. That night, Eliza presses your hand. If you ever run, she whispers, run before the wagon. You want to run? You picture roads, trees, a river, a sky without orders. But your legs remember chains even without iron. Fear is a fence you carry. The trader arrives with papers and a smile. He looks at you like prophet that can still be flipped. He asks, healthy, the owner says, strong enough, just needs discipline. They march you to town at dawn with 4 others, rope linking wrists like beads. You pass fields you've never touched, houses you've never entered, people who don't look away. At the depot, a brick pen reeks of sweat and despair. Names fade, numbers take over. A boy cries for his mother. A woman rocks and hums with no song left. You sit against the wall and realize this is the second middle passage, just on land. You stand, slow, Your heart pounds like it wants out first. A loose board near the corner shifts when you press it. Someone has tested it before. You pry with your fingers until nails bite skin. The gap widens, breath by breath. A hand grabs yours from the dark outside. It's a man you don't know. Eyes sharp, silent. He points now. The rain covers everything. You slide through mud like you're being reborn. You run behind barrels, behind wagons, behind the stink of horses, swallowing panic. The man guides you to an alley, then to a cellar door already cracked. Inside, strangers pull you down and wrap you in a blanket that smells like smoke and soap. No one asks your name. No one calls you property. A woman touches your shoulder gently. Quiet, she says. You're safe for this hour, for this hour. You cling to the phrase like a life raft. You reach a river and see the far bank like a promise made of fog. A ferryman whispers, "Don't look back." You don't. Looking back is how they catch you. On the other side, you learn a new fear, freedom that can be stolen again. Freedom feels thin there, but it still feels like air. You promise yourself, if you survive, you will testify forever. Years later, after war and proclamations, you stand in a church and hear the word free. You think of Samuel. You think of the nameless girl. You think of the child you ended. Freedom tastes like grief, because the past doesn't unlock when the law does. You place an ad in a paper with shaking hands. Seeking my son, Samuel. You describe a scar he had, a dimple, the shape of his cry. You sign with the name you kept. Weeks pass, months. Silence answers. But you place another ad, because silence isn't proof of death. You keep searching, because searching is what a mother does when the world stole the rest. And somewhere, in some town, a man reads your words and feels something stir. A name, a memory, a thread pulled tight across decades. The plantation tried to turn you into a number. You became a seeker instead. That is how you fight a machine, by refusing to disappear. So remember this. They made ghosts on purpose, and you are still here, calling them back.